Hi, my name is Antoinette Zloty and I'm your host of Transitions. I'm very, very lucky to have someone with me today to talk about Legal Aid Manitoba. His name is Peter Kingsley, and he is going to start by sharing a little bit about his journey into becoming Executive Director of Legal Aid, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the information around marriage, separation, and divorce, because we know that legal issues are very, very wide, so we hope to focus on that for you today. Okay, so thank you for joining us on Transitions.
Thank you very much for having me.
And so tell us a little bit about your early days in Ontario, which I understand that's where you are really originally from.
That's right. I was born and bred in St. Catharines, Ontario, which is right near the American border. I grew up in St. Catharines. I went to Brock University in St. Catharines, where I studied administration and politics. And my aim was always sort of to get into business. And as I went through Brock and as I was getting my degree, I found I was really quite interested in law and how law worked and the practice of law. But I was always applying it mostly to a business sense. So I took my LSAT, which is the entrance exam, and applied to a few universities for law school and business, and wasn't successful. That was fine. I continued on. I had met a lovely lady who later on became my wife, and my life continued. And we moved to Guelph. We got married, and she said to me, "You know, you've got 1 year left on your LSAT. Why don't you try one more time?" And I've been chatting with a professor friend from Brock, and he said, "You know, you really ought to try University of Manitoba. It's not one of the ones you might have thought of, because I'd only applied to Southern Ontario universities." He said, "You should try University of Manitoba. It's a good place, and it's got a good law program." So I did, and I got in. I went to law school at U of M. It's a fantastic law school. Learned a lot, learned that I needed to learn a lot. Again, I really discovered I enjoyed criminal law. I was offered a job by Legal Aid after I finished articling. I could either go to Thompson or I think I could go to Dauphin. And I have to admit, I looked at the map and my wife looked at the map, and we had at that point a 6-month-old daughter. And we said, Dauphin. Dauphin's a little warmer. So we went to Dauphin, just a little bit. But again, I worked with Therese Cotterbash in Dauphin, and again, some really amazing people and amazing judges. And I learned so much, and Dauphin was such a wonderful community to raise my children in. My son was born in Dauphin. In 2011, I was offered an opportunity to come back to Winnipeg as a senior manager, and came back, and my family followed over the years. As my children graduated high school, they moved back to Winnipeg, and I've been here now since 2011, and everybody moved in about 2017. About 2021, the position of executive director opened up, and I was a successful candidate. And it's been an interesting move, because when I started, it was all about arguing for the client. There was that individual who I was representing, and I could give voice to their story and make the argument of what was important to them and let the court hear what they felt had happened. And now I am in a very privileged position where I am meeting with my counterparts from across the country, whether it's with the Association of Legal Aid Plans or whether it's with the Canadian Bar Association, or whether it's on various national committees, such as the National Committee on the Access to Justice, where I am meeting with Supreme Court justices, where I am meeting with the heads of every other legal aid plan, where we can advocate on behalf of the entire structure of legal aid and what it means to have legal aid. And it is one of the realities, and I think we're seeing this a little bit right now in the South, is people take rights for granted. We have a right to say, I don't like this. We have a right to vote. You and I are equal, okay? It doesn't matter that you're female, I'm male, you're black, I'm white. That doesn't matter. We're equal. We each have those equal rights. But when someone starts taking those rights away, it's very fragile. And legal aid, that's one of those things. They're there and they protect that. And the protection of our basic rights, yes, sometimes it's the rights, when someone's arrested, when someone's in the middle of a separation, when somebody's children have been apprehended by the state. Those basic rights, the ability of a lawyer to stand up and say, wait a minute, I want to see all the evidence. I want this person to have a moment in court where an independent, unbiased arbitrator is going to listen to everything and they're going to make the decision. Mm-hmm. It's such a vital thing, and I'm so proud to be able to make those arguments now on a national stage.
And so it would appear then that along the way, you've had some really good advice, you've had some really good supports, and if you had to say that there was one challenge, like before we go into talking more generally about people going into marriage and what they should consider, and also the difference between marriage and common law and so on, what would you say was the most striking challenge that you faced along the way? Was it anything to do with maybe self-doubt initially?
There's a couple.
Yeah.
First off, clearly my wife. If she had not been the support throughout my career, the person to move along, there is no question I would not be doing what I'm doing. And that sort of support is simply
good.
Is absolutely vital. I've received good advice from many people, whether it was university professors, whether it was my godfather, who was also a lawyer, whether it was my parents, who always supported me, and never once said, "Are you sure you want to?" They were there. Self-doubt every day. Why me? Why not someone else? Why am I doing? And even now, I am supported by a team of incredible people at Legal Aid.
Yeah,
my senior management team makes the system work. So it's is there any one? My wife. But the reality is that I have been exceptionally fortunate, well beyond my due, to receive consistent love and support from lots of people who have said plainly, give it a shot.
So that encouragement is really good, and that tells us all too to think about some of the young people around us who might be actually aspiring to study law or medicine or any of the professions that people might see as more challenging than others, to just maybe help them out a little bit by giving support.
Absolutely.
And so if we turn now to looking specifically at marriage, okay? So some people, they consider the place of marriage, they consider things like who will they have to conduct the marriage. Some people say, well, I don't even need to get married. So that up front, before we even get to the point of separation and divorce, just the comparison between the two too, between common law and marriage, like, because some of us from the older school are still thinking that marriage is still the better of the choice of the two. But legally, maybe comment on that.
Sure. So if marriage is important to you, marriage is important to you. And marriage is important for cultural reasons. It's important for family reasons. It's important to many individuals for many emotional reasons. Any relationship you have with an individual obviously is ultimately and clinically a legal relationship. If you have two individuals who own a car together, it's a legal relationship. Bluntly, marriage, relationships, marital relations, however you want to define them, are a legal contract. It's a legal agreement. Nowadays, basically speaking, if you are in a common law relationship, depending upon the province you are in, the country you are in, and by which act we are looking under, because different acts define it differently. Generally speaking, in Manitoba, if you've been living together for 3 years, or if you have a child together and you're living together, you're deemed to be in a common law relationship. Once you're in a common law relationship, effectively, there's no difference between a married person and a common law person. Their rights are the same. They have rights under the Marital Property Act. They have rights under the Deceased Intestate Act. All of these things flow. Before, it did make a difference. When I went to law school, obviously, if you were married, you had certain rights. If you weren't married, well, you didn't get those rights. You could have had somebody who was in a relationship for 20 years, lived with the individual. Everybody thought they were married, but they weren't. And suddenly, what do you mean I have to prove all these things? The law...
Excuse me for a second. Now, is common law legislated through the provinces?
Common law?
And so it would be different depending on where you're living or where you entered that common law relationship?
It depends on where you're living. Yeah.
So would you know which province might be, it sounds like Manitoba is a good province to be living in if you are going to live common law.
And again, that one I have to come honestly here.
The comparison.
This is where the criminal lawyer is confident and the family lawyer side is not very. I'm not entirely sure on each province.
Yeah.
I can tell you they are slightly different depending upon. I do know that in many ways, Quebec's laws are far more, I have a son who lives in Quebec, are far more modern in many ways than Manitoba's was. They were one of the first ones to sort of adopt and understand the common law relationship. But again, it really changes. So when you are deciding that you want to spend time and move in with someone, and of course, it's a highly charged opportunity. It is obviously a time when people are not necessarily thinking of their legal options and legal rights. But it, for those who are thinking, well, it's not a bad idea to consider the legal things. Obviously, once you start living together, there are issues where property becomes shared. So it sounds kind of silly, but you live with somebody and you buy a dog. Well, congratulations. The dog is owned by both of you. You buy a car. It doesn't, and here's a prime example. I have a truck, my wife has a car, okay? That's our cars and our truck from a legal perspective. Even though from our mental thought is, that's my wife's car, that's my truck.
Excuse me for a sec, Peter, but if you had a prenup that said all the vehicles will be owned by the purchaser and will not be shared, because prenups are something that is more in this generation, isn't it? Like back when my husband and I got married, like it wasn't like prenups were like, oh, you didn't even thinking about that. But nowadays, I think that because people are maybe getting married later, they're a little older, they've acquired maybe some individual wealth, or they have some, like, this is going to be my dog. If we break up, you are not getting part sharing of this dog. This is my dog. Can you put that in a prenup? That
yes
is my
and no.
pet. Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Like many things in law, it depends. Generally, prenup agreements deal with pre-existing assets.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it may very well be that sometimes the parties will agree, as an example, and by the way, prenup agreements have existed for
A long time. Yeah?
long time.
Oh, okay.
Although they were for people not like us. But you could have a prenup agreement that says the parties agree that upon the dissolution of the marriage, notwithstanding any increase in assets, the wife is entitled only to X amount of money. Okay, and they set out a sum of money. That might be legal. And again, I'm not a contract lawyer who deals with this, so do not take my word on that. But to simply say all vehicles purchased during the course of the marriage will belong to the husband and not to the wife, that could be a little trickier, because it's where's the money coming from?
Or who owns the vehicle at the time of purchase?
That may very well be.
That's what I was
right.
referring to. Yeah,
And sometimes you'll see that'll be the case where one person owns a house, right? Because of course, when you get married, if person A owns a house, starts living with person B, the person B is entitled to half of the increase in the value of the house during the relationship. They're not entitled to half the house. They're entitled to the increase in value from the date they started living together until the date they separate. Okay. But it could very well be that they have a prenup agreement that says, notwithstanding that they have this right, they agree for, they'll get paid $2,000 if the relationship fails, and they have no right in the house. So again, a prenup agreement is, for lack of a better way of putting it, an opportunity to speak to a legal expert on the subject, to actually sit down and say, these are the things you're going to be sharing. These are the things that are not shared. This is, if everything goes south and things don't work out, this is what everyone's going to walk away with. If that's agreeable to everyone, great. If it's not, here's an agreement that you can all live with. But it's like anything else. It's a matter of discussing, having that conversation, and making the informed choice. In the same way that when you go to a doctor, okay, you go to a doctor, I'm going to have my appendix removed. The doctor is going to tell you, these are the risks, okay? There is no such thing as an operation without any risk whatsoever. You make an informed choice, You'll proceed with the operation or you'll wait. If you go ahead, great.
So like I've either related to or been friends with people who have gone through separations and divorces, and many people feel that they would really have liked to have known a lot more earlier before going to the altar and saying I do.
Right.
And I'm just wondering whether is there education that legal aid provides, and also what is the income cutoff more or less? Do you have in
I actually do.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I haven't got it memorized anymore.
To get
So
help.
first off, the question is, before you get married, before you enter into a common law relationship,
Yeah.
no, legal aid does not really do much in the
Do
way
much
of
in that,
prenuptial
yeah.
agreements. Mostly because legal aids, and again, when we consider legal aid, we consider Legal Aid Manitoba. And as an organization, we provide assistance to people who are charged with criminal offenses, who are in marital breakdown and are looking for child support and spousal support in some cases, that sort of thing. Child protection, some public interest law, residential tenancies. What we don't really provide assistance with are people, bluntly, protecting their assets. If you have the ability to protect your assets, chances are you can afford a lawyer. Do I think people should talk to a lawyer beforehand? Yeah. When I got married, our minister actually sat us down and went through all of these things, and actually did talk about what's going to happen if there's a breakdown. Again, education's a wonderful thing. We often learn about it at the last minute.
Yeah.
In regards to who can get legal aid and really about educating yourself, the first thing really that can be beneficial, there are organizations like the Legal Help Center. There are organizations, the Law Society can provide some limited education. There are online sources that are available to provide some education on rights in family. But again, we're talking about really a separation of the assets. If a relationship is breaking down and you are either common law or you are in a marriage, especially if there are children, one of the first considerations that has to be determined is parental time, parenting time with the child, and support for that child. Children are the paramount concern of the court. It's the best interest of the children. And one of the things that we often remind clients is that we understand you don't like the other person right now. But if you have children, you're going to be seeing each other for the rest of your lives. So you have to take that step back, and you have to realize that that individual and that child has a right to know their parent. They have a right to be involved with both of their parents. And the court is going to make that effort to ensure that they have those options. The lawyer from Legal Aid, just like any other lawyer, and again, we use staff lawyers, we use private bar lawyers. They both do the same job. We have exactly the same training, exactly the same type of work. When I was working in Dauphin as a staff lawyer, I did shopliftings, I did murders. Other lawyers in town did shopliftings, they did murders. This was part of what we did in trade. most of the work in court, bluntly, is legal aid work.
Okay. Well, what is really important, though, I think, is for people to understand that the access to legal aid starts with them.
Right.
They're the ones who have to come forward, and they would be the ones to phone legal aid, say, I think I might be eligible because of my income level. Go online,
Both work.
And check and see whether or not you might be falling within that income range where you could get some help.
So
and do that, because it can make a difference. So just to sum up, what is the breaking point there in terms of the
So it really depends on the family size first, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a mom with 2 children, okay, and if the children are living with mom full time, okay, that's a family unit of 3. So any income from 0 to 40,500 gross income, and we will count what you're receiving in support, that sort of thing. You will get free legal aid. You're financially eligible for legal aid. Between 40,500 and 59,500, we have what's called an agreement to pay program. And that allows a person to retain a lawyer, where effectively you get the lawyer at what legal aid would have paid the lawyer. So it's at a very, very lower rate than if you retained the lawyer privately. Having said that, don't worry about the number as much as make the application.
Yes.
The worst case scenario is we're going to come back and say, I'm sorry, you don't qualify financially. And this is how we made the determination.
I think that is a good place for us to maybe end now, because I think we could talk about legal issues and so on for at least another half hour. And I really feel, again, it comes back with the person not seeing legal aid as something for somebody else and not for them. That, oh, I won't go to them because, of such and such. But to actually get the ball rolling, because it can make a difference too in your income as a woman going to start at divorce proceedings, making it legal in terms of flow of funds that might help you with your children. But we're going to have to come back again to legal matters, especially the criminal law legal matters. And on another show, I would really be interested in hearing some of the challenges that legal aid come upon. But for now, what we have to do is we have to say goodbye to our guests at home. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Peter, for being here on Transitions. It's been a pleasure.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.